By the way, before I forget to record this, I just want to say how rad Biollante's tag is. I mean, it's literally her on fire. That's a pretty rad tag. Anyways, yeah. How's it, Godzilla fans, Kaiju fans, collectors, and just general people of YouTube? This is Chanzilla1964 coming back to you with yet another figure review. This time we're going to be reviewing the Bandai Movie Monster Series Rose Form Biollante figure. A figure that won the 2023 Godzilla Store figure poll. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, pretty sure that's what it's called. But anyways, with that being said, let's get right into this review. Starting off with detail for this big, old, scary, viney Godzilla plant. That's also got a girl spirit inside of it. The detail work on this, I mean, I give props to Bandai for this one because it's really, really, really good. In fact, a lot of the figures that came out during the Godzilla Day line or the Godzilla Day releases, the detail work is amazing. From the Hedorah to Bagan to this one. Spoilers if I haven't reviewed any of them yet. Even to the Godzilla -1 figure. The detail work's very nice. But I mean, if we just look at all the viney detail, all the plant detail for Biollante, it's done very, very well. And then you got this vine here, which I appreciate greatly. Going around, you got some more of that viney details. And another vine detail over here. I mean, you got the seam line over here, which isn't actually that noticeable. But if you look at it really close, you can know, okay, that's a seam line. If you know what I mean. But yeah, the body is detailed very, very nicely. You have Biollante's heart organ thing. Detail work is done very nicely on this, and I love the vine going across it over here and how it kind of droops over and becomes kind of one of the footings for Biollante, I guess you can call it. Yeah, I really appreciate that piece of detail. The leaves for Biollante, I really like how Bandai did the leaves for her. The leaf detail is very nicely done. You got the stem here, the leaf itself, just beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And how these leaves are curved very differently. I mean, Bandai blew it out of the park with this release. I love how on this leaf though, you got the vines hanging off of it, which is a very different detail Bandai has not done to my knowledge, or at least for the Movie Monster Series line. I haven't known them to do this, so I really like this. How they have this change of pace. Then you come around to this side, you got this little detail over here, which to me, I thought it was a turn-off in the beginning, but I think it works out just fine having these two molded into the figure, since, I mean, there's nothing much you can really do with these two protruding. So yeah, I think this is fine. Some people may have a gripe with it. I personally don't. He had a very interesting little leaf plant detail over here, which is kind of cool. Never noticed that before. But for me, the star attractions, before I get to that, the vine detail are very nicely done too. You got the vine with the rose thorns going down it. Now, I'm going to start with these faces, and then I'll get to the main face. Because the main face, it really threw me for, like, I was wowed by it. But I really like the detail work on this guy's vine head for Biollante. There's some very interesting crackly details over here for the head, which I like a lot. And this head is a lot flatter and longer than the other Biollante's head. The crocodile form Biollante that we got way back when. So that's just a very interesting detail I noticed, and I appreciate the teeth are detailed. Granted, it looks a little messy, but I think the detail gets the point across because Biollante's teeth are really messy as is. But personally, I like the detail. Yeah, I like the detail. You're going to find similar detail on this guy, pretty much here too. But it's going to be curved a different way. That's about it. Similar detail, just the vines are curved differently. Yeah. Speaking of the main face for Biollante though, the rose itself, I mean, The detail work for the rose, the notches for it is just, for me, I think it's beautiful. Honestly, I do. And how they're layered very nicely too. Each one has its own individual rose petal detail going on here. If the camera will pick it up, yeah. See the rose petal details. I mean, just wow. The way they layered it is beautiful. And it all leads to this ugly, menacing looking mouth, which I really, really like. Because the mouth, I feel, isn't something that's the biggest part of Biollante, but that's how you know it's this form for Biollante, because you see the little mouth, which is really, really detailed very nicely, considering how small it actually is. Because when I do the size comparison, it's going to be kind of small, but that's enough of detail. Paint for Biollante. There's actually quite a lot of paint. I don't know if the camera picks it up, but there's shades of brown on the front roots for the bottom part, which I really, really like. It's not going to be found on the back, but it's most around the front, which, like I said, I really appreciate that little shading detail over here, Bandai. It's really cool. The heart part is painted very nicely. There's a little bit of bleed over from my copy onto this vine. That's just a QC thing though. The teeth for the vines are painted very, very well as well. I appreciate that they painted the teeth. I was kind of scared they wouldn't, honestly. The rose, it's its own separate color, which I love the color that they used for the rose. Beautiful rose red. The teeth is very nicely painted, or the mouth, sorry. The mouth is very nicely painted. And something that really threw me for a loop, Bandai painted these leaves. They could have left it green, regular green, this green, but they painted the leaves. Granted, not all of them. There's this one leaf that was left over, which, why? It was just one, but I'm not going to gripe over it because they painted everything else, and the paint they used for these leaves came out very, very nice. I love the stark contrast from the dark tree trunk green kind of thing going on here, foresty green, to this very nice leafy green. So, besides this, besides that and this, paint for me is practically perfect for Rose Biollante. I really like it, and I really appreciate the Bandai went the extra mile to add this little brown shading for the figure, for the bottom of the trunk. So yeah, as you guys could have seen earlier, for articulation for Rose Biollante, the vines move, both vines move. Her leaf tendril moves, although I wouldn't recommend moving it all the way around because it's on a set track, if that makes sense, where it's not meant to move, but it can move. And if you try to move it, it's going to be really, really rough on the vinyl. So I wouldn't recommend moving around the sleeve too much, especially with this. I'm afraid this would break off. Just be careful, is all I'm saying. And then you have the head. Biollante's head moves all the way around. Articulation for this figure, Bandai could have just left it as one statue, honestly. So I think articulation came out perfect. I appreciate the articulation for this figure. Moving on to size comparison. Size comparison for me is kind of what might be this figure's downfall, even though granted it's not as big a downfall as this figure. I'll get to that in a minute. But size comparison, Rose Biollante. Honestly, we never really saw much close-ups of these two fighting together because we always saw Rose Biollante in the water. And this is all we saw of her in the water. I think Godzilla was like waist high in the water like this. So just looking at this, I would say it's a perfect size up. All things considered, all factors considered movie-wise too. It's a perfect sizing for Rose Biollante. Granted, she looks short if you do it like this, but I mean, this is all you see in the movie, I'm just saying. Playability-wise, I think this is perfect playability-wise because the vines are a really, really good size too. Like, if you want to recreate one of the scenes from the movie where Godzilla's grappling with the vine, I mean, I personally think it's the perfect size for Rose Biollante. Might be a little short, but size-wise, it's practically perfect. So this is a practically perfect Rose Biollante figure, even though she could be bigger or taller, but she doesn't have to be, is what I'm saying. What is interesting is that Rose Biollante kind of towers over her final form, her crocodilian Biollante form. And this is what I meant when I said the heads were very different, by the way. See? Flatter. And then this one's just really fat, kind of. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, size-wise, practically perfect. Might be a little short, but not as bad as this Biollante figure, size-wise. Because, yeah, it's really sad because of how beautiful this figure is. But until we get an 8-inch figure of this, or of Biollante, this is all we got pretty much. Detail is awesome. Paint's perfect. Size is practically perfect. Articulation is personally above and beyond from what I expected Bandai to do for this figure. So, do I recommend you guys get this figure? 100% yes. If you're a fan of Biollante, if you're a fan of, what the heck's that show called? That one Broadway musical show thing? Little Shop of Horrors. If you're a fan of Little Shop of Horrors, I would recommend you get this figure too, because it's a more badass version of that potted plant thing. Yeah, I'm slipping on the name right now. It's kind of late when I'm reviewing Rose Biollante. But if you're a fan of the Heisei series too, if you're a fan of Biollante, you should get this figure, because you do not want to miss getting her while she's going for a retail price right now. Aftermarket, I'm a little afraid it's going to be killer. So yeah, I recommend you guys get her as soon as you can, especially if you're a big fan of Biollante. This will do it for today's review though, guys. Remember, if you guys like this video, do be sure to hit the like button down below. If you feel I may have missed anything, or if you just want to add to the conversation, by all means, please leave a comment in the comment section. And if you like what you see on the channel, please do be sure to hit the subscribe button. That being said though, this has been Chanzilla1964 saying, until next time, guys. Peace, peace.